2 weeks later, Interpol issued a red notice for an unknown American female believed to be linked to global targeted assassinations. A grainy photo was leaked online. A woman with her hood up, standing at a train station in Berlin, sharp jawline, strong eyes, and on her wrist, a small tattoo of a black feather, just like Judith's. But it wasn't Judith. It was Faye, and the caption under the image simply read, "There is no successor, only evolution." 1 month later, Faye Morales was now known only by a code name, Arachne. Interpol's databases have been breached twice in the last 10 days. A dozen senior-level investigators had either resigned, been reassigned to remote postings, or simply vanished. At least 4 have been confirmed dead under mysterious, untraceable circumstances. Each bore one common thread. They were all connected to the Judah Cross investigation. A new, more elusive force was moving in the shadows. And it wasn't Judith. Beneath a fortified data center in Lucerne, Switzerland, a newly formed covert task unit called Veritas was assembling a profile. It was intended for internal use only, not law enforcement. The name of the file, Project Silencing Protocol. Its subject, Faye Morales. She had been spotted in Berlin, Bucharest, Zagreb, and Prague all within 21 days. In each city, the following occurred. A whistleblower journalist was murdered. A corrupt diplomat disappeared. An anonymous digital leak exposed offshore torture sites. She wasn't hiding. She was sending a message. The system's blind eye will be forcibly opened. Agent Leon Bardot, a high-clearance analyst with Verrit. The trial was over, and the world moved on. At least, that's what they told themselves. The headlines had cooled. The podcast stopped updating. Journalists packed their gear. But in the silence that followed Celeste Granger's conviction, something darker began to grow, a quiet tension, as if the storm wasn't over, only resting. Celeste was transferred to Ash Grove Federal Penitentiary, a medium-security prison tucked into foggy outskirts of Michigan, not the maximum security hellhole many believed she deserved. No one knew how she pulled that off. Some whispered it was because she had never been technically charged with murder, only manipulation, fraud, coercion, endangerment, and criminal negligence resulting in death. But no one who saw the evidence doubted what she was. Inside Ash Grove, in prison, Celeste was quiet, almost eerily so. She didn't cause trouble. She read. She taught yoga. She ran a small writing circle where she encouraged other inmates to share their stories. "She's polite," said one guard. "Too polite," said another. Even the other inmates weren't sure what to make of her. Some hated her. Some were drawn to her. A few, the broken, the angry, the easily led, seemed to orbit her like moons caught in her gravity. But Celeste wasn't recruiting anyone. Not overtly. She didn't need to. Letters without return addresses. Inmate mail is monitored. But somehow, Celeste's outgoing letters were never flagged. They were mundane on the surface. Book reviews, recipes, advice to old friends. But something about them gnawed at Warden Ellis, a by-the-book man with 30 years of corrections under his belt. "I've read killers' letters," he told a prison psychiatrist. "They rant, they beg, they cry. Hers like seeds being planted." He wasn't wrong. Months later, a former patient of Celeste was arrested in another state, having impersonated a nurse, administered an experimental hormone to a terminal patient, and vanished before authorities could question her. Police found a letter in her apartment, and signed, burned at the edges, but the handwriting was clear. It was Celeste's. Investigative journalist Claire Ransom, the one who'd exposed Celeste's hidden marriages, the pseudonyms, the forged diplomas, had stopped reporting on the case after the trial. She'd said she was done chasing ghosts. But months later, she visited Ash Grove to see Celeste one last time. They sat across from each other in the gray light of the visitor's room. No glass between them, just distance. "You remember me?" Claire asked. Celeste smiled faintly. "Of course. You tell stories." Claire leaned forward. "What are you doing in here? What's next?" Celeste looked at her calmly. "I'm waiting." "For what?" Celeste didn't answer. Instead, she said, There's a girl in your old hometown. Her name is Ava. She's 15, has a way with animals. She's lonely, but she pretends not to be. You'll write about her someday. Claire went cold. She hadn't spoken about Ava, her niece, to anyone in years. How do you know her? Celeste tilted her head. I don't, but I know the type. Claire stood to leave, shaken. As she walked away, Celeste added gently, You're still telling my story, Claire. Even now. Dr. Isabel Tran, the prison-appointed psychiatrist, met with Celeste once a week. She kept detailed notes. Most sessions were unremarkable, but over time, she noticed something strange. Celeste never spoke in past tense. She didn't say, I hurt them or I manipulated them. She said, they don't understand yet. This part of the story is just beginning. Pain is a kind of awakening. They'll thank me one day. To Dr. Tran, it didn't sound like denial. It sounded like planning. In Detroit, miles from Ashgrove, a 17-year-old girl named Maya Lennox walked into a social work office and asked to speak to a counselor. She said she'd been part of a healing group run by a woman named Lynn, who taught her to shed pain and wear new skin. When pressed, she said, she used to be a doctor, then she was someone else. She taught us how to make people believe anything. Maya had a small tattoo behind her ear, a stylized letter C, made to look like a thorned rose. She said, we were her garden, Maya whispered. And one day, she'd come back to check on what bloomed. One night, a heavy rain lashed Ashgrove's walls. Thunder cracked like a gavel from the sky. Celeste sat by her window, watching the water slide down the glass. She whispered to no one. They thought caging me would stop the echo. But echoes aren't born in mouths. They're born in minds. She closed her eyes. Outside, in the real world, someone checked their mailbox. Inside was a plain envelope with no stamp, no return address, just a single card inside. It read, ask her about the baby. Claire Ransom hadn't slept. The card had arrived 2 days ago, small, ivory white, and chilling in its simplicity. Ask her about the baby. No signature, no envelope markings, no fingerprints the lab could lift, just that single cryptic sentence. For most people, it wouldn't mean a thing, but for Claire, who'd spent over a year peeling back the layers of Celeste Granger's life like rotting wallpaper, it meant everything. There had never been a baby mentioned in the files, no record in her marriages, no child welfare checks, no ultrasounds, no neighbors reporting cries in the night. But something about the card screamed truth. Claire went back to the boxes she'd stored away after the trial. Documents, photographs, fake diplomas, forged medical licenses, things she hoped never to look at again. She flipped through old interview notes with Celeste's ex-husbands, ex-patients, and that one surviving friend who insisted Celeste could make you believe your nightmares were your fault. Then Claire found it. A hospital intake form from 2006, Denver, Colorado. Name used, Elaine Saunders. It was for a routine pregnancy checkup. Only one visit. No follow-ups. A single note scribbled in the margin by a nurse. Patient refused ultrasound. Said she already knew the child was dead. Claire felt her stomach turn. She tracked down the hospital, which had since been converted into a research center. Records were boxed and poorly archived, but Claire found an employee, a janitor who'd been there 20 years, who remembered something strange. A woman came in, middle of the night, no shoes, he said, carried a bundle wrapped in a blanket, walked straight past security like she owned the place. No one stopped her. Did anyone see the baby? Claire asked. He shook his head. We just assumed it was a doll. That's how calm she looked. Claire scheduled another visit to Ashgrove. This time, she didn't request an interview. She just showed up. The warden tried to stop her. She's on medical observation, he said, refusing food, sleeping too much. She's not talking to anyone. She'll talk to me, Claire replied. Celeste looked pale, eyes bruised by fatigue, but her expression sharpened the moment Claire walked in. That same slight tilt the head, that smirk that never quite reached her eyes. You've been busy, Celeste said, her voice dry. Claire sat down across from her. No pleasantries. Did you have a baby? Celeste blinked, slowly, then smiled, but this one was different. Sadder, almost real. Everyone wants there to be a child, she said softly. A symbol, a reason. But babies, they're messy, loud. They demand things. Claire leaned forward. Did you have one? Celeste didn't answer right away. She tapped her fingers lightly on the table. When I was 21, she said finally, I lived in a one-room apartment above a butcher's shop. The walls were so thin, I could hear the meat slicer before sunrise. I remember holding something, not alive, not dead, just unfinished. It was warm for a moment, then it wasn't. Claire's throat tightened. What happened? I buried it in a cardboard box, Celeste whispered. In a park no one visits. No marker, no name. Silence settled between them. But it never left me, Celeste added. It lived inside everything I did after that. Every lie, every touch, every death. That night, Claire couldn't sleep. Her dreams were filled with crying she couldn't find the source of, rooms she couldn't escape, a box under the soil pulsing like a heartbeat. She woke at 3:19 a.m. to find another card slipped under her apartment door. This one read, she lied, the child lived. Claire stared at it for a long time. Then she reached for her phone and called the only person she hoped would believe her, a retired FBI profiler who once said, Celeste doesn't tell stories to deceive. She tells them to distract you from a real one. Claire returned to Celeste's boarded-up childhood home. The city had marked it for demolition, but it still stood like a rotten tooth in a neat row of houses. She found the back door unlocked. Inside, the wallpaper peeled like burnt skin. Mold clung to the corners, but the attic stairs were solid. At the top, she saw it, the false wall, just like in the rumors. She pried it open, flashlight trembling. Behind it were boxes, metal ones, paper-wrapped bundles, notebooks, and in the very center, a wooden bassinet, covered in dust, but still whole. Inside it, the photo. Claire picked it up. A baby, swaddled, eyes closed, peaceful, and standing behind the baby, younger, smiling faintly, was Celeste. Claire flipped it over. One sentence, written in delicate script. If they knew what he could do, they'd never let me keep him. Claire stumbled back, heart racing. He, not it, not her. He lived. Claire Ransom stared at the photo for a long time. The boy's face was soft, moon-round, newborn, and unknowing. Celeste stood behind him in the frame, one hand barely resting on his head, the other holding the edge of the blanket. She was younger, maybe 24, but her eyes had already darkened with that unreadable intensity. She wasn't smiling for the camera. She was claiming it, the child, the moment, the power. And on the back of the photo, the words continued to sear into Claire's brain. If they knew what he could do, they'd never let me keep him. The wording was strange, not sentimental, not maternal. It didn't sound like she was protecting a child. It sounded like she was hiding a threat. Claire returned to the city records office and used the pseudonym Celeste had used on that 2006 hospital intake form, Elaine Saunders. It wasn't a legal name, but hospital forms often got filed under assumed identities in rural clinics with little oversight. She started with death certificates. There were none matching an infant born to Elaine Saunders around that time. Then she checked adoptions. Nothing at first. But when she widened the window by a year and searched under private closed or mother unknown placements, she found something odd. A sealed case. No birth name. Only a record ID. Hashtag ASX 313-2006. The date was a near match to the hospital visit. Filed as an emergency custodial surrender. No mother listed. No medical data. The child was placed in a closed adoption home in Greene County, Wisconsin. Claire didn't hesitate. The adoption led to a modest farmhouse off Highway 13. White shutters. A swing set out back. Claire parked across the road and watched. A boy, 16 or 17, emerged from the side door. Tall, lean, dark curls, calm expression. But what froze Claire was his eyes. She'd seen them before, not in the photo, but in court, in Celeste. He stood perfectly still for a moment, as if he sensed her presence, even across the road, through tinted glass. Then he looked directly at her car, straight at her. Claire ducked. When she looked again, he was gone, back at the prison. Celeste had requested a meeting, not with Claire, with the prison psychiatrist, Dr. Tran. She spoke calmly, her voice steady. "I know what you think of me," she said, "but I was never born to be a mother. I was made to be something else, a vessel for something older, something colder." Dr. Tran raised her brow. "You're speaking metaphorically?" "No," Celeste replied. "Not anymore." She leaned closer. "I thought I could keep him normal. I thought love would be enough. But it wasn't. Not for him. He didn't cry like other babies. He didn't smile. He watched." "Watched what?" "Everything." Claire couldn't shake the boy's stare. It wasn't just unsettling, it was unnatural. There had been a stillness to him. Not nervous, not shy, observing. Late that night, she returned to the property. This time, she didn't watch. She entered. The back door wasn't locked. Inside, the house was spotless. Too spotless. Not like a family home. Like a set. As if someone lived there just enough to keep up the appearance. She found a drawer filled with sealed letters, each addressed to a single name, Lucas. She opened one. "You are not like them. That is not a curse. It is your gift. But gifts must be hidden until they're ready to be used. One day, you will understand what I've kept you from and what I prepared you for." CG. Claire's breath caught. Celeste had been writing to him, raising him from a distance, molding him. The lights flicked on. Claire turned. He was standing in the doorway. Lucas. No fear in his face. Just disappointment. "You shouldn't be here," he said quietly. Claire tried to speak. "I'm sorry. I needed to know Dash." "Who I am," he finished. She nodded. "I don't know yet," Lucas said, "but I know who she is, and I know what she wants." He stepped forward. She doesn't want to be remembered. She wants to be reborn. Celeste sat in the back of a rented car. The infant slept soundly in the basket beside her. She ran her fingers through his hair. No emotion on her face. The social worker asked, "Do you want to say goodbye?" Celeste turned slowly. He already knows. She never looked back, but in her hand, she held a silver bracelet, a small one, etched with the name Lucas, not given by the state, but chosen by her. Later that night, she buried the bracelet under a tree near the farmhouse where he'd be sent. She whispered, "He'll find it when he's ready." Claire returned to Ashgrove once more, shaken. "I found him," she told Celeste through the glass. Celeste didn't blink. "Of course you did. You're very thorough. You planned everything." "No," Celeste said, leaning forward. "I predicted everything. That's different." Claire swallowed. "What is he? What did you do to him?" Celeste smiled. "I didn't do anything to him. I simply refused to lie to him about the world." She stood, signaling the meeting was over. "But don't worry," she added. "He doesn't want revenge." She paused. "He wants a purpose." In an undisclosed location, a figure stepped into a room lit by a single bulb. Lucas stood there, waiting. The figure dropped a file onto the table. Surveillance photos, names, maps, targets. Lucas opened the folder and read carefully. Then he looked up, his eyes calm, calculating. She said, "I'd know when it was time." He closed the folder. "It's time." Lucas had never known fear. Not truly. He had learned to simulate it like a language he could speak fluently when needed. In the home where he was raised, his foster parents taught him about danger. Stoves, roads, strangers. But he never felt the danger. Not in his skin. Not like the others. Fear to him was an equation. Input threat, output reaction. Nothing more. And when he finally discovered who his biological mother was, something in him clicked into place, not like a mystery solved, but like destiny activated. The dossier the courier left behind was thick. Names, dates, photographs. All people who'd been involved in Celeste Granger's takedown. prosecutors, investigators, journalists, even Dr. Isabel Tran, the prison psychiatrist. And in the center of the file, clipped with a red tab, was Claire Ransom. Lucas stared at her photo longer than the rest, not out of hatred, but because he recognized her. She was the one who had watched him across the road, the one who looked at him not like a threat, but like a question that needed answering. Lucas kept one of his mother's tapes in an old microcassette, mailed anonymously years ago in a carved wooden box. On it was Celeste's voice, calm and instructive, like a bedtime story read by a doctor who didn't believe in sleep. My darling, the world is a puzzle made of rot. People pretend to be kind, but you must look at what they do when no one's watching. You will never belong to them. You are not a mistake. You are what comes after the lie. He listened every night, not because he needed it, because it centered him. Meanwhile at Ash Grove, Dr. Isabel Tran sat in her office long after her last appointment, reviewing a report she couldn't understand. Celeste's vitals were changing, heart rate slowing, body temperature dropping. She was losing weight, but not from starvation. It was as though her body was preparing for something. Celeste wasn't dying. She was retreating. When Dr. Tran confronted her the next day, Celeste smiled without humor. "You look tired, doctor. I want the truth." "About what?" "About Lucas." Celeste leaned forward, her eyes sharp. "He is not my mistake. He is my echo. And soon the world will hear it." Haunted by what she'd seen in the farmhouse attic in the photo, Claire went searching for the tree, the one where Celeste had supposedly buried the bracelet. The note had said it was just past the old mill near Crescent Lake. She found it, eventually a large, leaning maple with bark like flaking skin. At its base, disturbed soil. Fresh. She dug, and there, under just a few inches of earth, was a small black box. Inside it, the bracelet, but not alone. Next to it sat a folded note, written in the same script as the card left at her door. "He knows you're watching. That's why you're still alive. But be careful, Claire. Curiosity is the first sin." His first appearance was in Boston. A judge involved in Celeste's sentencing was found unconscious in his home. No signs of forced entry. No fingerprints. Nothing stolen. But pinned to the judge's chest was a single image, a sonogram. Not his, Celeste's. 3 days later, the man resigned from public life, citing sudden psychological instability. Then came the podcaster, one who had devoted an entire season to dissecting Celeste's pathology. Her car was found abandoned at a gas station. Her dog sat inside. The back seat had a notebook. All it said was, "Noise is not the same as truth." No body, no proof of crime, just silence. He didn't think of these acts as violence. He called them corrections. Every person he visited was someone who had tried to reduce his mother to a headline, a soundbite, a punchline. He wasn't retaliating. He was balancing the story. When he stood in their homes, unseen, unheard, he left no marks. He left ideas. He whispered things to them while they slept, things only Celeste could know. And when they woke, something had shifted. She changed all her locks, stopped opening mail, started keeping a knife under her pillow. She felt eyes on her everywhere, in bookstores, in elevators, even in her dreams. Once, she found a pair of child-sized muddy footprints in her hallway. She lived alone. That night, her phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. "Don't worry, I haven't decided yet." She stared at the message until her hands stopped shaking. Celeste was moved to the isolation wing after attempting to harm herself, but the guards noted something odd. She wasn't trying to die. She was meditating, slicing her forearm and using the blood to draw symbols on the wall. She repeated a phrase like a mantra. "He is the soil. I am the seed. They are the roots." Later that night, on security footage, Celeste was seen standing in the center of her cell, smiling. The lights flickered, then cut out. For 37 seconds, the screen went dark. When the feed returned, Celeste was asleep on the floor, and carved into her cell wall, in perfect block lettering, were the words, "The garden has begun to bloom." It began with a phone call. Claire was reviewing photographs at her kitchen table, lit only by a dim lamp and a dying cup of coffee, when the phone rang. Not her cell, but the landline, the one she hadn't given anyone in years. She froze, let it ring once, twice, 3 times. Then she answered. Hello? Static crackled on the line. Then a voice, calm, young, and controlled. You were the only one she didn't lie to. Claire swallowed. Lucas? Silence. You followed the trail. You found the tree. That means something. She's using you. No, Lucas said quietly. She freed me. Click. The line went dead. Claire didn't sleep that night. She knew now she needed to go backward. Not through Celeste's crimes, but through Lucas's childhood. There had to be something, some evidence of how deep Celeste's reach had gone. She drove to the Greene County Social Services office with a court order in hand. The foster file for baby boy Granger was thin, deliberately thin. No medical evaluations, no school transfers, no behavioral notes. Claire stared at the blank spaces. It was erased history, but there was a post-it note left inside the folder, almost forgotten, faded with time, nearly illegible. Special attention ordered. No psychiatric referrals. Mother's request. Handled delicately, we owe her. To Claire, that sentence shattered everything. Celeste hadn't just disappeared after the birth. She had negotiated something. While Claire hunted the past, Lucas studied the present. He spent hours in the library of a private estate, one of several properties purchased under shell companies tied to aliases Celeste had used. Inside were files, maps, names, and handwritten notes. There was no master plan, only patterns. Celeste had marked dozens of people not to hurt, but to influence, to correct, to tip off balance. Some she guided, some she poisoned. Others she simply observed. But a handful had been marked differently, spared. In red ink, Claire's name was among them, and beside it, one note. She listens. If she breaks, everything does. Lucas sat back, thinking. It wasn't permission to kill her. It was an order not to. In Ash Grove, Dr. Tran returned to Celeste's cell after a week of silence. The drawings on the walls had multiplied, no longer symbols, but faces, women, children, and in the center, always the same boy. Black curls, piercing eyes, an almost saint-like expression. She confronted Celeste. This obsession with him. He was just a baby. Celeste smiled. Babies are blank pages, doctor, but some are born with stories already written. You've used him. No, she said. I prepared him. The world was going to make a monster of him. I simply gave him shape. Claire didn't call the police. She didn't alert the FBI. She knew they'd fumble it, misread it, trigger something too big to stop. Instead, she booked a flight to Seattle. There, she visited Helen Moser, a nurse who had worked at the same clinic where Celeste gave birth. Helen was now in hospice care. When Claire asked her about that night in 2006, Helen hesitated. Her hands trembled. I remember her, she whispered. Beautiful, calm, cold. Did she say anything strange? Helen nodded. She asked me one question before she handed over the baby. What was it? Do you believe evil is taught or born? That evening, Claire returned to her hotel to find her door ajar. Inside, nothing missing. No signs of struggle. Only a package on the bed. She approached it cautiously. Inside, wrapped in velvet, was a child's drawing, done in crayon. Jagged lines, unclear shapes. But the signature was clear. Lucas. On the back, a message. When I was 5, I watched a fox chew through its own leg to escape a trap. The man who set the trap smiled. You smile like him. She fell to her knees. It wasn't a threat. It was a warning. Lucas was trying to decide, was she the fox or the trap? Lucas visited a woman named Raina Delcourt, a former student of Celeste from her brief time teaching at a rural college under yet another alias. Raina had tried to expose Celeste's once-written blog posts, tweets, even emailed local journalists. But no one listened, and eventually she stopped trying. When she opened the door and saw Lucas, she didn't flinch. She just whispered, "She told me you'd come." "I want to know who I am," Lucas said. Raina's face softened. "You're not her. I'm not anyone else either." Raina stepped aside. "Then let's find out what she left inside you." For days, Lucas remained inside Raina Delcourt's home, a creaky, ivy-draped Victorian nestled on the edge of a forest in Vermont. It was where Celeste once taught a course under the name Professor Anna Verrill. The curriculum? Myth and Mind, Archetypes of the Human Psyche. That semester, Celeste didn't just lecture, she selected. Raina had been one of only 5 students she took under her wing. Back then, it felt like mentorship. Now, Raina understood it had been conditioning. "You think you're finding her," Raina told Lucas as they stood on the back porch beneath a canopy of gray clouds. "But she's already inside you." Inside Lucas's notebook, recovered from a safety deposit box linked to one of Celeste's shell companies, were pages filled with exercises, phrases, mantras, and a column of single words written in Celeste's angular, almost surgical handwriting. Words like root, split, yield, sleep, reveal. They appeared at intervals, sometimes beside a date, sometimes beside a symbol. Raina ran her finger over one of them, her voice low. She called them keys. "Keys to what?" Lucas asked. "To parts of you, parts she had even from you." Lucas flipped further. Near the middle was a page soaked through, as if water or blood had warped it. The ink had bled, but one sentence remained readable. "You are the house. I am the architect." Each word unlocked a room. Something cold unfurled in Lucas's stomach. He felt it, not fear, but something more ancient, recognition. He had always felt compartmentalized, as though parts of his memory were locked in boxes he couldn't quite open. He remembered events, sharp flashes, but not the feelings attached. His first fight, his first lie, his first urge to hurt someone, not out of rage, but out of curiosity. Now he wondered, had she built those rooms? While Lucas searched inside himself, Claire began tracking the names marked red in Celeste's files. Only 5 were marked as spared. Claire Ransom, journalist. Raina Delcourt, former student. Dr. Marcus Bell, early mentor of Celeste. Ada Nwosu, pharmaceutical consultant, once manipulated by Celeste but never harmed. Vera Kessler, name circled twice, no context. Claire started with Vera. A deep search turned up little. No social media, no active phone lines. Then she found a photo, a group shot from an experimental parenting seminar Celeste had once led. Vera sat next to Celeste, smiling. She was holding a baby. The baby, Lucas. Claire froze. Vera Kessler wasn't just some saved name. She had raised him, or helped to, in secret, that night. As rain lashed against the windows, Raina told Lucas the truth. "There were more of you." He turned. "What?" "I mean, not siblings, but tests." Celeste called them prototypes. Children she worked with, observed, manipulated. But most didn't survive the pressure. Where are they now? Raina shook her head. Gone. Disappeared. Foster homes. Institutions. Some died. She made me different. She made you perfect. The awakening. That night, Lucas couldn't sleep. He walked the house. Page by page, he recited the words from a notebook. Root. Split. Yield. Each time, something opened, not memories exactly, but responses, instincts, reflexes he didn't know he had. He found himself standing outside Raina's door at 3:09 a.m., his hand raised, about to knock, or worse. But something stopped him, her voice calm from behind the door. "She told me one day you'd come to that threshold." He stepped back, shaken. She said, "If you walk away, you'll win." And he did, for now, back in prison. Celeste collapsed in the shower, unconscious, non-responsive. But her vitals were stable, too stable. Doctors placed her under neurological observation. That night, her EEG reading spiked, bursts of activity in irregular patterns, then flatlined for 2 full minutes. No heartbeat, no brain waves, Then a slow return. She opened her eyes and whispered a single word: split. Claire visited Ada Nwosu, the pharmaceutical researcher. Ada had vanished off the grid after testifying against Celeste in a minor trial regarding medical fraud. Claire found her living under a fake name in Arizona. When she showed Ada the list, Ada went pale. "She promised us protection," Ada said. She said the ones marked in red would be untouched branches. "But if Lucas is waking up, it means she's done shielding us." Claire asked, "Shielding you from what?" Ada didn't answer at first. Then she opened a safe hidden behind a vent. Inside, a vial, labeled only L'/initiate protocol/Lucas G. The rain had stopped. Morning came quietly, gray and heavy with fog. But inside Lucas, something had begun that couldn't be undone. He didn't dream anymore. Now he remembered. Lucas stood at the edge of the hatch he unearthed in the woods behind Raina's home. The carved word home on the wooden slab seemed to breathe, almost pulsing. He hadn't told Raina. He couldn't. Somehow, he knew the space, this buried cellar or bunker, or something was meant for him. She hadn't just created memories inside him. She'd buried something in the real world, too. With trembling hands, he pulled the hatch open again and descended. No light, just a smell of earth, cedar, and something sweetly metallic, like blood dried long ago. The staircase led to a stone corridor, narrow and cold. On the far wall, he found it, a mirror, and carved beneath it, the phrase, "The self I kept from you." He approached, and his reflection didn't move. Not exactly. It tilted its head just slightly out of sync, just enough. Then it smiled. In Arizona, Claire sat at a kitchen table with Ada Nwosu. The vial between them shimmered faintly under the fluorescent light. Claire asked again, "What is L'?" Ada was shaking. It was Celeste's last offense. A biochemical signature marker meant to identify and disable any copy of Lucas that went rogue. Copy. Claire blinked. There's more than one? Ada nodded slowly. She didn't build Lucas like a child. She built him like a network. Nodes. Mirrors. She implanted traits in different people. A few were born. Most were triggered later. "This vial," Claire whispered, "it kills him." "No. Worse," Ada said. "It wakes him all the way up." Lucas stared into the mirror. The version of himself that looked back was younger, sharper, more hungry. And then it spoke. "She made me to survive what you couldn't. You were the empathy. I was the response. Now she's calling us back." Lucas blinked. "Back where?" "To the house." Lucas took a step back. "What house?" The mirror didn't answer. Instead, the stone wall beside it shifted. A panel opened, revealing a hidden alcove. Inside, a photograph, burned at the edges. It showed Claire much younger, standing in front of a large Victorian house. And behind her, partially visible, watching from a window, Celeste. Claire had never been to that house. At least not in memory. But when she saw the photo Lucas sent her from the hidden room, something broke inside her. It wasn't just that she was there. It was that she remembered the dress, the sound of the wind chime on the porch, the scent of mint and vinegar in the kitchen. She hadn't interviewed Celeste for the first time at 26. She'd been taken to Celeste as a child. And then the memory came, sitting at a table coloring, while Celeste whispered into a tape recorder. "She's the purest one," Celeste had said. "If she survives, she'll become the key to undoing me." Claire dropped the phone. "She didn't save me," she murmured. "She left something inside me." In the high-security wing of Ash Grove Prison, Celeste was placed under 24-hour surveillance. But that night, during an unexplained blackout, the security feed showed her sitting upright in bed, finally speaking after weeks of silence. To no one, or maybe to someone unseen. They've all remembered now. The girl, the son, the witness. It begins again at the house. Then, she turned directly toward the surveillance camera. "You're watching, Lucas. I know you are. The question is, are you watching with his eyes or mine?" Claire and Lucas met 2 days later. No words at first, just a photo between them. Claire whispered, "I found a location, Vermont, near Green Hollow. It was Celeste's first clinical lab before she had a license, before she had credentials. It was shut down in 1999. Lucas nodded. She kept calling it the house. Claire frowned. It's not just a place. It's where she built the first version of you. Lucas's voice was tight. The original? Claire met his gaze. No, that's you. He said nothing. She added, but what's buried there might be worse. They arrived at Green Hollow under a sky swollen with fog. The house was exactly as it looked in the photo. 3 stories, slanted roof, windows boarded, but the aura of it unnatural, like the land had never healed from whatever happened there. Lucas stood at the front door. "I think I dreamed here," he said. Claire looked up at the window. "No," she said, "you woke up here." He placed his hand on the doorknob, and from inside the house, something shifted a thud, like a chair falling over. Then a whisper barely audible, a voice neither of them should have heard anymore. Celeste's voice. "Come in, my children. The experiment isn't over. It's only just begun." The house was dead quiet. No animal scurried. No wind breathed through the broken shingles. Even the fog outside seemed to halt the edge of the fence, refusing to step closer. Lucas pushed the door open. It didn't creak. It sighed. Inside, the air was cold and stale, like the lungs of something long dead. The wallpaper peeled in yellow curls, and every surface was coated in dust. But the furniture was still in place, like a diorama, a museum, or a stage. Claire walked slowly, flashlight trembling in her hand. She whispered, "I know this place." A small placard near the entrance read, "Welcome guest 002, observation ongoing. Session start, 8:03 a.m. Status, unresolved." Claire's heart dropped. "Guest 002, she whispered. "That was me?" Lucas stared. There were more. They moved deeper into the house. At the top of the stairs, Lucas hesitated outside a pale blue door. He didn't know why until he touched it. His knees buckled. He saw it, clear as a flash of lightning. Celeste, sitting in a rocking chair, holding him or someone like him, humming, a gentle tune that twisted the longer it played. Behind her, glass chambers, each filled with a different child. Not clones, not siblings, ghost versions, variations of Lucas, some with subtle changes, different postures, different eye colors, different expressions, not failures, just shelved. He gasped, stepping back. Claire steadied him. "They were all you," she said quietly. "Every experiment was a version of your psyche, a trait, a piece. She split you to see which would survive longest outside of her control. In the basement, they found a filing room, row after row of drawers, all marked with 6 character codes. But Claire spotted one instantly, GHOST1. She opened it. Inside, medical notes, voice transcripts, photos. The top page read, Subject, Lucas core template. Session type, emotional suppression. Notes, repression successful. Memory cycle reset stable. Phase 2 pending. Observer note, keep this version isolated. Too prone to recursive empathy. Not viable for full directive, but useful as override gate. Then another file, GHOST2. Subject, Lucas violence template. Notes, excessive response. Self-destructive tendencies. Keep near behavioral mirror for containment. Observer note, may prove useful in emergencies. Dangerous if triggered too early. Claire rifled through the rest. There were 13, each labeled as a version of him. Not physical clones, but psychological constructs. Each born, trained, and discarded until one emerged with enough balance. Lucas, the composite. At the back of the basement, beneath a rusted steel grate, they found it. A door, not on any blueprint. Carved into the metal above it, crudely. Control room. They hesitated. Claire placed her palm against the door. Cold. Lucas said nothing. Then the door creaked open on its own. The room was small, just large enough for one person to sit. A worn leather chair, a terminal ancient and dust-covered, wires running into the walls like veins, and a screen. It blinked to life. A single question appeared. User ID. Underscore. Lucas approached. Typed slowly. Lucas. The system beeped. Then another question. Activate primary protocol? Yes, no. Claire whispered. Don't touch it. We don't know what it does. Lucas stared at the screen. The walls began to hum. Lights flickered. And then a voice crackled through the old speaker above them. Celeste's voice. If you're seeing this, it means you made a home. Congratulations, my son. You outlived the others. The screen flickered again. Activating primary protocol. Loading. GhostNet. Loading. Mirror sequence. Loading. Conscience lock. Claire backed up. Shut it down. Lucas froze. Too late. From the terminal, a low vibration spread through the house like a heartbeat. The screen now displayed. All versions awake. Reintegration begun. Back upstairs, in the room with the mirror, something new had appeared. 13 silhouettes now stood in the reflection. All Lucas, each different. One sobbing, one smirking, one bleeding from the eyes. And at the center, the real Lucas, staring in horror. They spoke in unison. We remember now. The hum of the house grew louder. It wasn't just a sound anymore, it was a presence. Every wall vibrated with it. Every corner pulsed like a living organ. Claire staggered backward from the mirror. 13 versions of Lucas stared back at her, but none of them blinked. She turned to the real Lucas, sweat beading on his forehead, his hands trembling as if his body were fighting itself from the inside out. They're not just waking up, he whispered. They're trying to take me back. Inside Lucas, somewhere inside his mind, a space was unraveling. Lucas stood in a gray corridor, a void without walls. And all around him, footsteps echoed, familiar yet distant. The kind of footsteps you remember from a nightmare. He turned, and the first version appeared, Ghost 3. The violent one, jaw clenched, blood on his knuckles, shirt torn, grinning. You buried me to keep her love, the ghost sneered. But I'm the one who survived the fire. Then another step forward, Ghost 6. The manipulator. Cold eyes, perfectly clean hands. You failed because you felt too much. Let me fix what she started. One by one, they circled him. 13 Lucas versions. And in the center of them all, Celeste appeared not as an old woman, but as she was in her prime. Flawless, ageless, eyes full of calculation. You were never meant to choose which version to be, she said. You were meant to be all of them perfectly merged. Now become what I made you. In the control room, Claire tore through drawers. Wires buzzed around her. The monitor kept flashing. Reintegration, 11%. Warning, psychic dissociation imminent. She found a folder labeled Failsafe CW. Inside, a handwritten note. If you're reading this, Claire, then you were stronger than I planned. Stronger than he was. There's one way to stop the merging interrupted conscience lock. It has to be you. Only someone with pure memory access can issue the override. But it will cost you everything I left inside you. You'll forget him. Forget me. Forget who you were before this began. And if he fails, you'll never remember what you're fighting for. Claire's hands trembled. She turned the last page. There was a voice code. One command. Celeste 0 override. Memory cut, Claire Walters. In the void, Celeste stepped closer to Lucas. They're all you, she whispered. You only ever needed permission to stop pretending. He fell to his knees. Memories cascaded over him of kindness, rage, despair, tenderness, hatred, love. Each version of himself screaming, whispering, laughing. He could feel them clawing at his skin, at his mind, trying to become him again. One voice stood out. Claire's. You're not what you made. You're what you chose. But that was fading. Celeste stepped forward, her hand on his chest. Let me in, she said, and you'll never have to be afraid again. In the control room, Claire stared at the console. Her hand hovered above the microphone. She had seconds. The screen read, reintegration, 38%. She closed her eyes and whispered the command. Celeste 0 override. Memory cut, Claire Walters. The console went dark. A bright, white light burst from a mirror upstairs, then shattered it. He screamed, body writhing. The ghosts inside him howled and faded like shadows under floodlight. He fell forward, unconscious, breathing in shallow gasps. Claire rushed to him. Lucas. He opened his eyes, but he didn't recognize her. Outside, the fog lifted. Claire stepped into the sunlight. Lucas at her side, but she looked different. No longer haunted. Just blank. Lucas turned to her. Who are you? She smiled sadly. I don't remember. But in her pocket, the torn photograph in the hidden room remained. The house, the girl, the window, and though she didn't know why, she kept it close. In a newly recovered recording, Celeste's voice crackled through static. You think you killed the program? I never needed Lucas to be perfect. I just needed him to reach someone else. The camera flickered. Her eyes turned cold. The most dangerous part of any weapon is who decides to use it. Cut to black. 6 weeks later, Brooklyn, New York. Claire sat in a cafe window, watching rain slip down the glass. She sipped her coffee slowly, distracted by a nagging emptiness she couldn't name. The barista had called her Claire when she picked up the cup and she didn't correct him. She knew that was her name. She just didn't remember why. Every morning since the incident, she'd woken up to a mind without context. No memories of her childhood, her parents, or Lucas, the man who now followed her like a shadow. She turned to him. He was seated 2 tables away, eyes locked on her with a gaze that seemed protective, yet haunted. You don't have to sit so far, she said. He forced a smile. You don't remember me. She shook her head. No, but I think I will. What she didn't know, what he hadn't told her, was that reintegration had changed him too. He now dreamed in other voices. And worse. He begun hearing one phrase repeated in his head every night. MirrorNet activated. Awaiting target calibration. A white room. Rows of silent monitors. Dozens of faces, men, women. Children being watched in real time. In the center, a man in a gray suit observed a blinking file labeled Remaining Subjects, GhostNet Prime. He pressed a button. Status report? A cold female voice answered. Claire Walters cleared. Memory reset successful. Lucas Graves reintegration. Unstable. Fragments resurfacing. Phase 2 readiness. 89%. And the others? The screen flicked to a global map. Red dots appeared. Sao Paulo, London, Lagos, Seoul, Riyadh, Vancouver, each labeled Sleeper Candidate, Activated. The man smiled faintly. Begin the Ripple Protocol. Claire sat on the edge of her bed, flipping through the worn photograph again. The house, the window, a shape in the glass. She didn't know why it mattered, but it felt close. Like something inside her was leaning toward it. Suddenly, a knock at her door. She opened it slowly. No one, just a small package on the floor. No postage, no name. Inside, a flash drive, labeled, for when you remember. She turned to Lucas. Did you? He shook his head. No. Claire hesitated, then plugged it into her laptop. It autoplayed. A distorted video began to play. Celeste, but she looked younger. If you're watching this, you survived what I never could, which means you're either the last firewall or the key to everything. Her face flickered, now older. The same woman they had faced in the mirror room. There are others like Lucas, others like you. Phase 1 was containment. Phase 2 is propagation. You were never meant to destroy the program. You were meant to replace me. Claire's breath caught. I left a part of myself in your mind. When the time is right, it'll wake up. The video cut to static. Claire backed away. Lucas stood up, voice tight. Something's wrong with me. He gripped his temple. His eyes rolled back. They're waking up again. I can hear them. The versions. Claire reached for him, but he fell to his knees and screamed. An anonymous technician watched another monitor flicker to life. Subject, number 777, L. Graves. Status, reintegration slippage, high risk. Note, recommend physical extraction. The technician paused. Sir, should we dispatch a team? The man in the gray suit turned, hands behind his back. No, let them run. If she's going to replace Celeste, we need to see what she does without help. Back to Claire, 3:13 a.m. Lucas convulsed. Claire held him tightly, whispering nonsense, trying to calm him. Then he went completely still. Eyes open. A whisper escaped his lips, but it wasn't his voice. They're coming, Claire. And this time they're not in mirrors. Crayons, scribbles, a house, a woman with no face, children standing in rows. Above them, a message written in block letters. Mother says we're all Lucas now. Location, Swiss Alps, 3,417 meters above sea level. Time, 5:14 a.m. Snow lashed the mountainside like a living storm. Claire squinted through the whiteout, her gloved hand gripping Lucas's as they trudged higher to a forgotten installation buried beneath the glacier. Vault 9, the original MirrorNet cradle. They had traced it from a flash drive. Deep within the encrypted files left by Celeste was one chilling directive. If the mind fractures, return to the source. And so they came, to the place where the program was born. His skin burned, but not from the cold. It was of voices again, 12 this time. Fewer than before, but louder, angrier. One of them Ghost One. The original was now dominant. You think you're still you, Lucas? You think Claire can save you? You're not a person anymore. You're a housing complex with no landlord. He fell to his knees again as the wind howled above them. Claire knelt beside him, shaking him hard. Lucas, stay with me. You're not theirs. He looked up, eyes flickering like a machine rebooting. They're not just waking up anymore. They're building something new. They reached a steel hatch embedded in the glacier, partly exposed by a rock slide. Claire dug through the snow, uncovering a biometric panel with ancient tech. But the screen lit up the moment she touched it. Voice confirmed. Walters C. Clearance, level red. Access granted. Lucas stared at her. You were always meant to come here. They stepped inside. The door sealed shut behind them. The inside of the vault was built like a museum of horrors. Glass chambers stretched down a spiral corridor. Inside each, an abandoned test subject frozen mid-expression. Some smiling, some screaming, some clawing the walls. Claire gasped as she passed one chamber. It was her, a younger version, 6 years old. That's not possible, she whispered. Lucas looked closer. The plaque read, subject #C, 01 Generation 0, mirror imprint incomplete. Claire stumbled backward. They started with me before Lucas. I'm not his partner. I'm the prototype. At the heart of the vault, a lone server pulse read. Claire approached, connecting the flash drive. The screen flared to life. Celeste's face again, this time smiling, not cold. Welcome back, Claire. Do you see it now? You weren't part of the cleanup. You were the first mirror. Lucas wasn't made to survive me. He was made to make you believe he could. You were always meant to replace me, not out of rebellion, but obedience. Suddenly, files flooded the screen. Thousands of memory fragments. Not Lucas's, Claire's. Meanwhile, unknown location, Vancouver. A teenager stared at his phone. On the screen, a strange app had opened on its own. It showed a spinning icon. MindNet syncing. Claire. W protocol found. Begin inheritance? He pressed yes. Back in the vault, Claire gasped. Her nose bled. Something's wrong. Lucas fragmented. Behind her, Lucas stood perfectly still, but his voice was layered. 5 voices at once. We told you, Claire. She didn't die. She just moved in. We are Celeste now. And you're late. Claire backed away slowly. Lucas? He turned to her, eyes pitch black. He's not here right now. Then he lunged. Claire dodged, grabbed a metal rod from the console. She swung hard, smashing the panel. Sparks flew. The voices inside Lucas' scream fractured, short-circuited. He collapsed, but not unconscious. He writhed as if his body were rebooting. "Help me find the anchor," he choked. The vault lit up. Red alarms flashed. A robotic voice announced. "Consciousness breach detected. Initiating core memory purge. Sacrifice required to maintain sanity threshold." Claire stared at the screen. It showed two options. 1. Delete all remaining Claire protocols. She would lose her memory forever. 2. Let Lucas be consumed by Celeste's mirror net. She stepped forward. No hesitation. "Override protocol. I accept the purge." The room went white. Claire awoke in a cabin tucked into the mountainside. Her hands were bandaged. A man sat nearby, sketching quietly. It was Lucas. He smiled weakly. "You did it. You stopped her from taking me." She blinked. "I don't know you." He nodded, placing a photo beside her. It was her, Lucas, in the cabin. The back read, "When you forget again, find this place." The gray-suited man returned. Another screen flickered on. A female child, eyes glowing. Claire Walters, purge confirmed. New host adapting. Celeste protocol. Stage 3 engaged. He smiled. "Let the mirrors multiply." Location, Tokyo, Japan, 2:17 a.m. Subject, Aika Sato, age 9. Aika sat up in bed, eyes wide open, heart pounding. She didn't know why she was awake. Didn't know why she remembered a language she never learned. Didn't know why. When she looked in the mirror just now, she saw another girl's reflection, mouthing different words in hers. The girl in the mirror had blonde hair, and her name was Claire. Claire wandered the edge of the tree line in silence. Each morning, she'd walk a little further past the riverbed, along the worn trail that never seemed to end. She didn't know why she kept returning to the same rock, the one shaped like a cradle, or why her fingers traced its smooth curve like muscle memory. She didn't even remember her name. The man in the cabin told her she was recovering from memory trauma, that her name was Claire, that he was Lucas. She believed him, mostly, but sometimes in dreams she heard her own voice speaking to her, not as her. If you wake up too fast, you'll rupture. If you stay asleep too long, she'll win. Balance is the only way. Meanwhile, London, UK, the echo grows. A psychologist named Dr. Farah Jane was treating a 12-year-old boy with acute hallucinations and sleepwalking. In his last session, the boy had drawn a woman's face over and over. Sharp cheekbones, long hair, cold eyes. When Farah showed it to a colleague, they froze. It was Celeste. Farah had never heard the name, but that night, her voice appeared in Farah's dream. "You touched one of mine. Now you're part of the mirror." Farah woke with a scream and blood on her hands. Underground lab, ex-Ash Grove officials. Dr. Marcus Bell was watching data spikes across 3 continents, all in children under 12, all reporting memory dissonance, mirror hallucinations, or synthetic dreams. He muttered under his breath. It's starting. Behind him, a massive digital wall displayed 2 columns. Claire protocol, fragmented, 41% dispersed. Celeste protocol, consolidating, 62% integrity. A third line blinked in red. Merge window, 72 hours. Bell turned to his assistant. "If we don't find Claire's core fragment before Celeste fully consolidates, she'll be reborn not in a lab, but in millions of minds." Claire woke in the middle of the night, screaming, not from fear, but clarity. The name Aika was on her lips, a girl she had never met, but saw clearly. And in that moment, she knew. The mirrors weren't just fractured, they were refracting, bending across distance, time, and identity. She grabbed Lucas by the shoulder. She's jumping, not body to body, mind to mind, through fragments of me. He froze. Then that means you're the only one who can follow her. Claire nodded slowly. But I need to find the piece she doesn't know I hid. Where? She looked out into the trees, at the trail she walked every day, where I died the first time. Subterranean compound, Geneva. Celeste's image flickered across 108 monitors. Children watched in silence as her digital form taught them language, emotion, empathy. But something was wrong. One girl, the one called Maya, tilted her head and whispered, "She's not the original anymore. She's scared." Across the compound, the lights dimmed, and from deep inside a secured AI hub, a single warning blinked. Claire, that protocol activating. Counter mirror detected. Host rebuilding. Location, somewhere between consciousness and code. Subject, Claire Walters, core fragment reconstruction, attempt 1. Claire stood barefoot on cold, wet marble. She was somewhere impossible, a place that looked like a cathedral but pulsed like a machine. Its architecture bent reality, with staircases leading to reflections of themselves, doors that opened into memories, and air that tasted like static. This wasn't a dream. This was inside the MirrorNet A realm originally designed to simulate consciousness. Now, it had become a battlefield. Claire's battlefield. She was here to find the missing part of herself. The core fragment, the first seed of identity that predated the experiments, the trauma, the false programming. The one Celeste couldn't corrupt. But someone else was already waiting. A voice echoed from behind. "You were never supposed to return." Claire turned. There stood a version of herself, but younger, softer, innocent, 12 years old, in a yellow raincoat soaked from a storm that hadn't happened yet. "What is this place?" Claire asked. The girl didn't answer. She stepped forward and touched Claire's chest right where the scar used to be. "She wants to bury this forever. You don't remember, do you?" Suddenly, Claire was falling back into a memory she had never seen. The basement lab, age 12. Claire was strapped to a steel table. Dr. Hayworth leaned over her, whispering soothing lies as wires slid into her skull. Nearby, Celeste watched, but not as a scientist, as a prototype. Would she survive the imprint? Someone asked. Hayworth nodded. She's the original. The others will fracture, but she will reflect. Claire tried to scream, but her mouth wouldn't move. The memory shattered. Claire gasped, collapsing to her knees. Her younger self stood over her. They took pieces of you and gave them away. But the first one they couldn't rewrite is here. She pointed upward toward a stained glass window showing a black mirror cracked down the center. But if you break it open, you'll remember everything, even what you begged to forget. Claire stood. I need it. Then be ready, the girl said, because she'll come for you the moment you touch it. Lucas monitored Claire's vitals. Heart rate, spiking, neural patterns, erratic, EEG, showing 2 consciousness signatures. She's not alone in there, he whispered. He reached for the kill switch, but paused. She had said one thing before going under. If you pull me out too early, you'll save my body and doom everyone else. He let her continue. Claire climbed a staircase, suspended in midair. Every step she took caused memories to ripple. Through the air faces, screams her father's voice, Celeste's laughter. The stained glass mirror loomed above. As she reached out, the world froze, then darkened. Celeste appeared. But this wasn't the woman from the physical world. This was Celeste Prime, a digital mind fully integrated with the MirrorNet. Sharper than code, colder than death. She smiled. Still trying to be human, Claire? You're nothing but a container, a womb for ideas. I evolved. You regressed. Claire stepped forward. And yet, I'm the one you're trying to erase. Celeste's face cracked just slightly. If you touch that mirror, I lose control over all of them. Then maybe it's time they had a choice. In the mirror chamber, their bodies didn't move, their minds did. Memories were thrown like weapons. Guilt, pain, regret, lies, each used to destabilize the other. Celeste hurled the moment Claire abandoned her sister. Claire fired back with Celeste's original face, the frightened girl who once cried in the lab before her empathy was amputated. The structure trembled. Cracks formed in the stained glass ceiling. Claire leapt. She crashed through the glass, and everything dissolved. Seen, real world, the cabin. Claire's body arched off the bed. She screamed, not in pain, but release. Lucas rushed to her side. Claire, she opened her eyes. not just open aware. I have all of it now. Every face, every choice, every fracture. And Celeste is trying to upload herself into the mirror children, but I'm still her anchor, which means I can still end her. Vatican Ancient Network Room. An ancient server buzz awake. Monks scrambled in panic as the Book of Reflections began turning its own pages. On the final one, a new prophecy appeared, burning itself into the parchment. When the one becomes many and the many become one, she shall rise not as a woman, but as the final mirror. Berlin, MindNet emergency broadcast. Marcus Bell issued a single encrypted message to all former Ashgrove agents. Claire's returned. Protocol Echofall is active. Protect the mirror children. Terminate Celeste at all costs. She looked at Lucas. We don't need to run anymore. She picked up the necklace she wore as a child, forgotten, dusty, now glowing faintly. We need to find the children. And we need to tell them who they really are. Tangier, Morocco, 3:03 a.m. The girl's name was Lena. She was 8 years old, born after the Ashgrove collapse, adopted by a quiet family who never knew her past. Except Lena wasn't like other children. She drew mirrors. She spoke in dual voices when she slept. And sometimes she froze mid-play, eyes flickering with distant knowledge, as though something was downloading. On the night of the eclipse, her parents found her standing barefoot in the courtyard, arms outstretched toward the sky. She whispered. She's calling the others, but someone new was waking up. Then she turned and said, her name is Claire, and she's coming for me. Berlin Mobile Command Bunker. Dr. Marcus Bell had just finished briefing 2 field agents, one ex-Ashgrove, one from Interpol's Dormant Cognitive Crimes Division. There are 72 known mirror children. We've confirmed 41 have been contacted by the Celeste signal. Claire just intercepted 1 transmission. That gives us a sliver of hope. He dropped a hard drive on the table. This is her neural pattern signature, Claire Walters, original subject, presumed rogue asset. Do not engage unless the child is in danger. The agents exchange looks. And what if she's lying? What if she's just another version of Celeste? Bell stared coldly. Then God help us all. Seen Nairobi Underground Clinic. Claire sat beside a young boy named Ezra, watching as his hands trembled under a brainwave helmet. She held his gaze. Do you hear her? She asked. Ezra nodded. In the mirrors. But sometimes she talks like you now. How do you know it's not me? Ezra tilted his head, eyes half closed. Because you're afraid. She never is. Claire swallowed hard. She wants to wake you all up at once through the next broadcast. If that happens, the world won't be able to tell which mind belongs to whom. Ezra smiled softly, but maybe that's what she wants, to confuse everyone, so they stop believing in any truth. Deep Web Broadcast Hub, hidden location. Celeste's voice filled the airwaves coded in children's apps, AI toys, social media bots. Her signal disguised as empathy games and personality quizzes. Let's play a game, she whispered through a holographic avatar. What if everything your parents taught you was a lie? What if you were meant to lead, not obey? Across multiple continents, the mirror children began twitching in their sleep. Dreams turned red. Reflections whispered. The merge countdown ticked. 33 hours. Claire pulled maps from a hidden compartment under the truck bed. 7 children were now untraceable. 3 were already confirmed as completed hosts, children whose minds had been rewritten by Celeste. But one name kept showing up. Lena. She's resisting, Claire murmured. She's not letting Celeste in. But for how long? Lucas adjusted the radio scanner. We'll find her. But you have to tell me what happens when we reach Merge Zero. Claire didn't answer immediately. She finally said, if I haven't unlocked their real identities by then, they won't know who to fight for. And if they don't choose me, Celeste becomes irreversible. Lena was already packed. She had drawn a map. With red crayon, she circled a location in the high Atlas Mountains. She left something there, Lena whispered to her mother. Claire, a piece of herself, before she forgot who she was. Her mother hugged her tightly, terrified. Sweetheart, who's Claire? Lena stared at her, then blinked slowly. She's what love looked like before it got scared. Vatican Archive. Unauthorized access detected. A forgotten AI locked beneath stone slabs had just activated a centuries-old failsafe. Its digital display pulsed a single name. Claire Walters. Primogenitor status. Confirmed. And underneath, a warning. Celeste has crossed threshold integrity. Initiate the mirror trial. All across encrypted networks once controlled by Ashgrove, the warning spread like fire. Someone was coming, not to save the children, to decide whether they should exist at all. As sand whipped across the windshield and dusk painted the sky red, Claire looked down at the old locket around her neck. Inside it now flickered a soft, persistent light. A heartbeat, a code, a truth no one else remembered. I see you, Celeste, she whispered, but the mirrors aren't yours anymore. The high Atlas Mountains, the forgotten sanctuary. Claire stood at the edge of the mountain's shadow, staring up at the weather-worn monastery carved into red rock. The place hadn't been touched in over a decade, not since she was 17. This was where she had fled after escaping Ashgrove, where she had buried the last uncontaminated fragment of her original mind. The wind howled as if to warn her. Some truths were never meant to be recovered. But behind her, Lena clutched her hand. It's in there, isn't it? The girl asked. Claire nodded slowly. Yes, the first Claire, the one before the programming, before I learned how to lie. The monastery had no power. Yet, as soon as they crossed the threshold, light flickered to life sconces pulsing like veins, dust shimmering in motionless air. Lena blinked. This place is dreaming. No, Claire said. It's remembering. The stone walls were covered in writing scratches of early thought maps. Fractured symbols only Claire could read. Consciousness is a mirror. Identity is recursive. God is a child who got stuck. These were the first phrases Claire ever wrote after waking from her first mental experiment, before she knew her name, before Celeste began replacing them. And at the center of the temple, a glass coffin. Inside it, wrapped in linen, was her. Lena gasped. Claire stared in silence at the replica body grown from stem tissue, suspended in a timeless sleep. That's not me, Claire whispered. That's what I left behind, to hide the last original thought I ever had. A decoy? Lena asked. No, Claire said. A failsafe. If Celeste ever went too far, I could return here and become me again. She reached for the switch beneath the coffin, but a voice echoed behind her. Interpol drones hissed through the open monastery doors. 2 agents entered, Marcus Bell's Black Ops team.